Hello and welcome to Your Friend in the Darkness podcast. This is episode number 3. And today we're focusing on Remy's funeral. So the actual funeral day was the 17th of September and it's 3 years on today. So I thought it was a good time to reflect on the journey and what the takeaways have been since then. I think it is interesting to see what kind of fades away and what becomes really important, I guess. And going into the funeral day, I was really thankful for some advice from a friend who had to bury her mother at a fairly young age. And she told me, Steph, you know what? It's actually okay if you don't cry at all. And that's kind of what ended up happening at the funeral. The whole day, I did not cry. There were definitely tears after the fact, in the coming days and weeks of that heavy grief period. But on the day, it was actually a real sense of triumph. Like, I felt like this little boy of ours had a life well lived. And to me, it was a true triumph over death, because I know that I don't actually have to offer up any masses for it. I know where he is, and I know that with full certainty that he is in heaven and did not have an opportunity to even risk his chances. He's baptized, so I had full confidence of where this child was going to be, and it was a real sense of reuniting, I think, with our guests who had come from near and far to honour the life of little Remy. People that never got to meet him. There were over 250 people that attended his funeral. Not that it matters how many people attend your funeral, I guess, but to me, what this big theme was that you can be a little person and have a big funeral. And, it was a full-on requiem mass. He had the whole works. He had a coffin, he had flowers, and there was all of that grandeur that his life deserved to have. And I think that's what made the day really special for me, is that he was worth the effort. And it kept highlighting that theme to me, that it doesn't matter how little you are, it doesn't matter what experiences you've had, it doesn't matter what you've achieved or not achieved, but your life is still worth celebrating. And more than celebrating, it's a reunion. And I really felt that we sort of went into the funeral with just a lot of joy. Like, we had Remy's godfather with us that day, and I got to see my brother from overseas. We had friends from Sydney. A whole contingency of people came up, and one of my professors was able to attend at my ill-fated PhD project. She was actually in the army previously, and I think that in itself, it had a lot of weight for me. Like, Remy was this little soldier who was now getting, his respects. Yeah, it just, I think just in the honouring of his life, it just helped me fully appreciate what his life was. And yeah, it was a real testament and a triumph. And it was just perfect. Like, we got to the church, we could come and have a look at his little body, and we prayed with him again, the prayers that we prayed every day of his life. And then we had a few remarks before the funeral started, just explaining like what some of the graces were from all the prayers that we were doing. And then being able to see that at the completion of his life on earth, we could see that there was such peace in his death, and that truly he had been blessed. And I think, there's that tragedy, I guess, of a parent burying their child. But in a way, it was an honor. I think that's where my sense of triumph was coming from, is that I got to run the whole race with him, and we got to be there for the very end of his life too, which parents don't actually have to witness to. But it's something that you'll hope, right? Like even with my living child, or children I should say, with this one on the way, see the belly's growing, you want to know that after we've gone that there's someone to look after them, and for me that's going to be faith. That is the gift that I'm giving my children. That is the confidence that I have that long after we're gone, God will be there to guide them, and they'll be able to read the signs and sense the heaven that lies beyond and within, and that will guide them to this beautiful reunion that Remy is now enjoying. He is reunited. And I think that was kind of part of the joy of the funeral, is that we had this spontaneous funeral after party after the actual funeral. We met up, at an RSL club, had the tea and the slideshow of the photos and all that, and speeches. But then, we just invited a bunch of our friends back to our house, and I think there was just so much providence there. Like, Brad and I think we just had leftover spaghetti in the fridge, and another one of our friends was like, hey, I'll just buy some extra pasta. We can, spread the sauce. And I think my mom had been sort of on sale buying all these ice cream tubs, so we had so many tubs of ice cream in our freezer. So we ended up having enough food to spontaneously cater to 16 or 20 guests who all had different needs, and we just happened to have the right food available. So, one of the friends there was on a FODMAP diet, and we happened to have a separate sauce for her, and was also gluten-free. And these were just kind of little God incidences, I guess. And then we were able to offer all this beautiful dessert for our guests. And there was something really childlike about that party because, I don't know, spaghetti bolognese and ice cream just sounds like the classic kids meal that you get at the restaurant. And I think, having friends from also different parts of my life, in a sense, and we were all coming together, for a very sad occasion, but I think I was really leaning into the reunion aspect and not really wanting to be alone in the grief. And I was so thankful for these people who had been brave enough to put themselves in a state of grief and sadness and sorrow and entered into that with me. And I think that's been where a lot of the healings happened, is people that didn't have to take on this grief came in with me. I've got two beautiful examples to share of that specifically. I will talk a bit more about the time in the NICU at the next episode, spent in the intensive care for babies. That's what NICU is. And there was a photographer that came in. She was a volunteer photographer. Again, young person, and that's what she did in her spare time. She would take her beautiful camera and her gifts, and she would come visit dying babies so families could get a photo with their child before they pass and have these beautiful memories. Now, she doesn't have to do that in her spare time at all. In fact, her life, she really did bring sunshine in, and I felt that. Another example was of a dear friend who, for Mother's Day, the first Mother's Day after Remy had passed, she had put together a scrapbook of all the photos and all the little memories, and she'd organised that through Brad, my husband. And I was so touched because while I was in the hospital, I had no energy to do all the, here's the first week of Remy and here's, his little footprint. I didn't have time to present that and journal. It was a really all-consuming experience of being in the hospital with him. So the fact that this lady put together a scrapbook, something that I felt I should have done as a mother myself, not that there are any expectations on what motherhood looks like, but that to me was just so beautiful. And this woman told me that it took her months to put together. It was the hardest thing she'd ever had to make. And I just said, thank you for carrying this cross with me, because it felt like, where I wasn't strong enough to face it, this woman had then come in and done that for me. So I think that's that was really the theme of the funeral, was this sense of reunion. And I have complete confidence that in the future, when we go to heaven, it is going to be a big reunion. And sure, there was the empty chair of Remy at the funeral, but when we get to heaven, we're going to see everyone there, all of our friends, all of our family, and it will be a beautiful reunion. And it, yeah, so in a sense, I was feeling even the joy of the wedding that my husband and I had because we had had a bit of a COVID moment impact our wedding. So, we couldn't have all those people come. And so it was nice to see the ones that we couldn't see at the wedding, at the funeral. And in a sense, I think it takes a lot. Like, it's one thing to come to the wedding, the joyful occasion, but it's another thing to attend the funeral. And I think it, it's a big emotional work for anyone. And so I'm really thankful to those friends that wanted to come sit with me in that particular space, and that were able to, that had the resources to do that at that time. So it kind of taught me about why it is one of the corporal works of mercy is to actually come and bury the dead, and what an honor it is. And yeah, it's just kind of been linking in with some of the church readings recently about buying a piece of land and burying the bodies in them. And there's something so, I guess, honorable about that process. And to know that there is a physical resting place for Remy. We do visit him from time to time on different occasions. And no doubt, we would have visited him for his recent birthday when we launched this podcast. And we do visit him for big occasions as well, Easter and Christmas. And he's a part of our life moving forward. But the funeral day was the day where I could finally start to grieve after that point, because there's this kind of strange limbo between when the person passes away to when you finally get the body. And this is especially because there was a bit of distance involved. There was still a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of investigation they did as to, a bit of research to help the scientists as well. They had a look at his lungs, what was going on there. And we chose to have, all of his organs still stay there. But it was a really insightful sort of job, because death is something most people tend not to really focus on, and especially the practicality of death and what happens, like to the physical body. And so there was, Remy had passed on the 3rd of September, so it was actually the 17th of September before the funeral could happen, and with his body sent up to where we live. So thankfully, they were able to sort of preserve his body in the way that he still seemed pretty fresh. Speaking practically there. So those are my main kind of memories from funeral day. It was beautiful to see my husband's speech as well. And I have looked back at the footage from the funeral. He had a really heartfelt speech. I felt like he kind of said the things that I'd kind of want to say as the mother as well, but I just couldn't do it. I just felt them so deeply that I couldn't bring it to the surface. And he summarized his life beautifully. And it was a nice call to action, because his life is not going to be in vain. I think that's the main thing. If I had Remy and I remained the same person, then it would be in vain. But when a new person enters the world, there is no going back. There is change, and there's growth, and there's infinitely more love in the world because of that person that has joined us. And I think that's kind of the accumulation of the funeral was. It was me realizing I'm no longer the same person. I've still become a mother. yes, I'm drying up breast milk. Yes, there's a lot of reasons to feel sorry for myself in this given day. And yes, I'd gained a whole bunch of weight, which hasn't quite left. It's the Remy belly. But it's a physical, it's that outward sign that something has changed. That I can't just go on living like I didn't have a son. I can't go on living that his life didn't change mine. And I can't go on living without being more compassionate now towards those that have experienced losses, ones that I'm kind of ashamed to admit, ones that I didn't really acknowledge or fully understand to the same extent. I think I had this problematic, I think, view that it kind of mattered what gestation Remy came out at and how long he lived, but those aren't the measures of how valuable his life was. And I think when I maybe glossed over or tried to make distinctions between, oh, it's a miscarriage or a stillborn or a newborn, it it begins to be this cloudy territory of saying, well, my child has lived for 30 weeks longer than yours, therefore is more valuable. So I think, yeah, that the age is really not a factor. You can lose a child at any age, and that love and that bond is there. I'm going to pop a particular resource in the links for those following on YouTube as well. And it was this beautiful song that I came across. It's this concept of, it was a conversation that started with this child when they entered the world, and it just finishes a bit abruptly. I think that's how I felt with Remy. There was still more to say, but the funeral helped me say the things that I wanted to say to him as well. And I still talk to him on his birthday, and I give thanks for his life. And yeah, I do reflect on things and ask things of him, and he is very much our family saint. I hope you enjoyed those reflections, and I hope you join us next time, where I'll be talking about my experiences as a NICU mum and what that looks like. I'll see you next month. Your friend in the dark.